Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Throat Punch Thursday.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Who's ready?
It's Throat Punch Thursday, bitch.
As Mike would say, that's what happens when you try to take someone on in your Ranger panties. Okay, admittedly, I did not serve, so I don't know that I want to mess around with any Ranger who wears Ranger panties. But, I think I can hold my own against the average person in Ranger panties, I guess. I don't know. I don't know that I really want to find out. But in any case, we're having a good time here on the Rundown. It's just going to be us, as I said yesterday. Mike's doing his thing, making a dollar bill in some very nice areas, I will just tell you right now. He's having a good time, I'm sure. But it's just going to be us today, so very much appreciate you tuning in, appreciate you liking and sharing the program, and encouraging your friends to do the same. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the news following. It's right, you heard it. You thought I was going to skip it, didn't you? Of course you did. We're going to jump right into the news, and we're going to start with a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks over at Hitman Industries. Rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase. All you got to do is go to hitmanindustries.net and purchase the rifle and pistol caliber barrel of your length of your choosing. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Please go check them out at cragop.org, because if you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. You'll find them at hogholsters.com. Make sure you use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, and you will get a discount on us. Once again, just hit up Hog Holsters, helping Americans wear guns.com. And then finally, if you're looking for a deal and you're purchasing for a group, whether it be whether it be a club, whether it be a department, whether it be your unit, whatever it is, you can find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. They have a huge selection. They have competitive pricing. They have the best customer service available on the market. So you want to go there, check them out today. That's uscombatgear.com. All right, let's get into today's news, and we're going to go ahead and start with, we're talking about what everyone's been talking about, and that is immigration. We're going to be talking a little bit more today about the riots, or what I like to call the pro-criminal illegal alien riots. All right, we're going to be talking a little bit about those, but we're going to start off talking about some of the Democratic governors, or blue state governors. And they have actually decided today, they went before Congress, where they are basically going to be defending their immigration policies. Now, mind you, leading up to this, there was a commercial that went out. And I got to tell you, this will definitely get you, get your blood boiling, because here you're going to hear, basically what you're going to hear is you're going to hear all of the mealy-mouthed stuff that all the Democrats and all the leftists are saying regarding immigration, but in the end, the impact that it's having.
An illegal immigrant in upstate New York has been arrested in the rape of a 15-year-old girl.
Accused of raping a 5-year-old girl.
An undocumented immigrant pleading guilty to a deadly stabbing in Troy.
2 undocumented migrants accused of sex trafficking a 15-year-old girl.
The 2 suspects, who authorities say are both in the country illegally, are facing charges of murder as well as gang assault.
New York currently spending $2 billion to deal with the border crisis, of course, because this is a sanctuary city, and they flow in.
And in Chicago, they so far have spent $300 million since 2023 on migrants.
Is Chicago a sanctuary city?
A 40-year policy
of being a welcoming city.
You're the mayor. You don't have the math in front of you.
It's the
All
last
right, that's
4
why
years,
you're a failing
which
mayor.
is
You're providing an enormous amount of aid to illegal aliens, aiding and abetting criminals who have come into our country illegally.
Why are you letting rapists back out on the streets of Boston?
That is not true. That is not what's happening in Boston.
So you guys just snagged a previously deported, convicted child rapist. Is that unusual out here?
Not in Massachusetts. It's not unusual.
Look, I'm going to do everything that I can to protect our undocumented immigrants. They're residents of our state.
We say you are welcome here. You're welcome with open arms, and we'll work to keep you safe.
As long as I am governor of Minnesota, we will welcome immigrants with gratitude for their contributions to our communities.
This young man was killed by an illegal immigrant in Texas that never should have been in our country.
Lincoln Riley, Ruby Garcia, Rachel Morin, Jocelyn Nungaray, the woman set on fire in the New York subway, and other crimes that would not have taken the lives of these people if those people were not here illegally.
These policies only create sanctuary for criminals at the expense of the American people.
Says her Turkish immigrant arrested for allegedly raping a 15-year-old girl. Migrant gang member in Chicago suspected of murder. Sexually assaulted girlfriend is arrested. ICE captures illegal immigrant in Minnesota wanted for allegedly killing mother in DUI crash. Migrant arrested in rape of 13-year-old in Queens Park. On June 12th, sanctuary state governors will answer to the American
policy,
people.
Our state law does not allow for our state police to be involved in those situations. We're not going to allow this mass deportation.
We also have a law in the books in Illinois that says that our local law enforcement will stand up for those law-abiding, undocumented people in our state who are doing the right thing. And we're not going to help federal officials just drag them away because somebody pointed at them.
We got ourselves in this mess because we weren't bold enough to stand up and say, you damn right we're proud of these policies. We're going to put them in, and we're going to execute them.
So as you saw, that was put out by the Government Oversight Committee. Once again, they are doing an excellent job of what I like about what they did is that they're not just talking about the issue, but they're doing it in a way that is going to catch people's attention and it's going to resonate with folks. And there's not a thing that is there, not a statement that was made by them that is not true. And even more importantly, you have some of these blue states, some of these sanctuary state governors speaking up. Now, mind you, Tim Walz, former vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, was talking about in the committee today about how they're not actually a sanctuary state, how they don't actually have sanctuary policies. Well, he bragging about that, but you failed to mention that your three biggest cities there in Minnesota are sanctuary cities. And that you fully and wholly support those policies. The only reason why you don't is because, one, it hasn't really come across your desk. But here's a snippet of what Mr. Walz had to say before Congress today.
Minnesotans are angry with what they've seen happen to their neighbors. They're angry that the federal government has been snatching people up, putting them in prison, and deporting them without a shred of due process. There's been no notice, no meaningful opportunity to object, and according to the president, no way to get out of these overseas prisons once you end up there. And let's be clear, many of these are law-abiding Americans, people who have been granted asylum or promised protected status. In many cases, it seems these people were reported not based on a criminal behavior, but how they looked or what they've said and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Even U.S.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about some of that. Number one, so in other words, he's saying that the people of Minnesota are not angry and upset that their neighbors have been raped, their neighbors have been murdered, their neighbors have been robbed, their neighbors have been killed by those in the country illegally driving under the influence of alcohol. Those things their neighbors aren't mad about. Those things Minnesotans aren't mad about. Minnesotans, I'm going to guess, if you're watching this show from Minnesota, I'm willing to guess you disagree. I think that's a pretty fair thing. I think you guys pretty much disagree with that statement. But then the other thing is he's talking about Americans who are here legally. Now, let's be clear. There's this word out there where people talk about, well, people they've been granted asylum. First of all, no, they haven't been granted asylum. They've applied for asylum and they hadn't been granted it. If the law had been applied in the very beginning by the Biden administration, they would have never been granted asylum status because their situations do not meet the definition of what is required for asylum. Simply not liking where you're from, simply looking for better economic opportunity is not enough. It's not enough for you to be deemed and for you to be able to get asylum. You should apply for legal residency like everyone else, but that requires you to be outside of the United States. You don't get to do it unless you've acquired a visa to legally come to the United States. You're here during the time of that visa when you are legally allowed to be here. You don't get to just walk into the country and say, I'm going to claim asylum. No, you don't. No, you do not. So there's that. Then there are the people who oftentimes who are the ones they're really going after, that ICE is really going after. We're talking about the criminal illegals. We're talking about people who have committed crimes since they've been here. Right? These are people or are criminals where they came from. Now, this is something else to consider. They were criminals where they came from. And in fact, they claim that the only reason why they're here, why they're coming and why they want to apply asylum is they're like, well, I'm concerned because I will be oppressed by my government. Well, no, you're going to be jailed by your government because you're a criminal where you're from. There are those people who've applied for asylum. So does it meet the definition? In other words, if you are a criminal, a drug dealer, a murderer, a robber, a rapist where you're from, does that then mean that, you're worried that you're going to be put back in jail when you go back home, that you get to apply for asylum? No, that doesn't apply either. No, that does not apply. They're like, people are being scooped up just because of what they look like. Well, here's what's happening. The reason why they're in the communities is because people in sanctuary jurisdictions, the three biggest cities and several counties there in Minnesota, the state and the many municipalities there in Illinois, Chicago specifically, and same thing with New York, is because your refusal to work with law enforcement when you've apprehended somebody who is a criminal and in the country illegally, your refusal to work with them has created this problem. And then just your animosity. And for those of you, by the way, who wonder, here's, by the way, what Kathy Hochul had to say and the response to Kathy Hochul. Let's show that to you.
These are high-profile cases. New Yorkers know about them, and you don't. So let's talk about Sebastian Zepeda Khalil. Do you know who that is?
I don't have the specific details at my disposal, no.
Well, this is an illegal migrant in New York because of your sanctuary state policies. Do you know what crime he committed?
I'm not familiar at this moment.
I bet you're going to be familiar when I remind you. He found a sleeping woman on the subway, lit her on fire, and burned her alive. This is in Kathy Hochul's New York. And as I'm sure you are aware, and I'll remind you, that ICE issued an order to detain this violent criminal, but that was rejected by New York officials due to sanctuary state laws. Now, do you know who Raymond Rojas Basilio is?
I just want to say this. These crimes are horrific.
Because of your sanctuary state policies.
In all of these cases, we would work with ICE to remove them.
You did not in this case. They are walking.
And that's exactly the point. She's saying in these cases we would work with, but you didn't. But you didn't. In the cases that she is citing, in all of the cases that you saw in the commercial, these are instances where these folks were at one point apprehended or part of the legal process in the state where they in the particular state, and the state let them go. And so they were then able to go out and commit horrific crimes against other individuals. Once again, Minnesota, no different.
Just a few weeks ago, Minnesota Governor Walz stood at a commencement podium and smeared ICE agents as, quote, Trump modern-day Gestapo, end quote. Comparing brave law enforcement officers who risked their lives to uphold federal law to Nazi thugs is not just wrong, it's vile and disgusting.
Are you going to fund ICE's, what they don't pay us,
on detainers.
Well, listen, on detainers and in ICE, I don't call them the Gestapo. And this is my definition of Gestapo, Governor. Real Nazis from 1933 to 1945 that facilitated and participated in the murder of millions. I don't call federal law enforcement officers Gestapo. You were recently quoted. Where's the apology?
Donald Trump.
Oh, no, Donald Trump didn't. Listen, Donald Trump's not here.
Yeah.
You are, Governor.
Yeah.
You're a big boy. Put your big boy
I would
pants on.
ask, don't wear masks, identify who you are, don't pull up and under.
Governor, you called them Gestapo. Will you apologize for that?
And don't pull people.
Will you apologize for that?
Congressman, my job, I'm a history teacher.
Okay, so you won't. Okay, we're going to move on. No,
historical reference.
Chairman,
What you tweeted, by the way, sir, and on May 23rd, 2018, you tweeted, quote, I support policies that keep law enforcement from enforcing federal laws, close quote. On May 17th, just this spring, at the University of Minnesota Law School's commencement ceremony, you said, quote, Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. When you said the words modern-day Gestapo, you were referring to ICE agents. Gestapo, by the way, sir, was the official secret police of Hitler's Nazi Germany. So you're calling ICE agents modern-day Nazis. Given the attacks on ICE agents that took place in Los Angeles over the weekend, don't you regard your dangerous inflammatory rhetoric as a problem?
The questions do you want me to answer first?
So, sir, it saddens me that you refuse to express regret from comparing ICE to Nazis. ICE agents are brave Americans who get up every morning, leave their families, and put their lives in harm's way to protect our country, sir. You, at the very least, owe an apology to these dedicated public servants. I will say, sir, inflammatory rhetoric such as yours and the other governors on this panel is responsible for putting a target on the back of every ICE agent who is risking their life to protect our communities.
And that's really the point right there is, when you start calling people Nazis, you start calling them Gestapos. And he's like, well, when you put on masks, well, the reason why they have to do that is because you have made sure that they've gotten doxxed. You've promoted violence against them, and you have them and their families are now being accosted and assaulted by private individuals. So yeah, when they're going to engage in something where their face might be open or in camera, they're going to cover their faces. I'm sorry. You can't put someone at risk like that and then be surprised when they try to protect themselves or their families. You did that, Tim Walz. And none of these governors, I'll tell you, the one thing I will give Gavin Newsom is this. He was smart enough not to show up to this because he knew exactly what was going to happen, because he knew his own words would be used against him. And in all of these cases, they've all said, no, we are not going to enforce immigration law. Then they didn't enforce immigration law. And the very criminals that they've allowed on their streets have then, done harm to people. And it's their fault, because as I've said, I ad nauseum on this show, 100% of the crimes that are committed by illegal immigrants would not have been committed, would not have happened if those illegal aliens, illegal immigrants who committed them were not in the country, because we were actually enforcing our immigration laws. And so now what's happening is Donald Trump is now enforcing immigration laws on the border. He's enforcing immigration laws when it comes to visas, and it comes through other ways in which people enter the country. And he's also now enforcing it with people who've actually ignored it. He's now actually doing what it is that needs to be done. And all of these people who have applied for asylum, and we know that they're not eligible for asylum, they have been told, they have been duly warned, you are no longer here legally, you've got to go. Now, initially, they're not the ones that are being looked for by ICE. ICE is going after the criminal aliens. But if you happen to be around them, guess what? Then you might get scooped up too. And just so you know, if you are someone who is here in this country legally and you are around them, just know you're surrounded. You're in the company of criminals, people who have committed crimes since they've been here. Yeah, you probably would want to know that. And these aren't people whose situations have not been adjudicated. right? These are people who we know. The only people who have not committed crimes here, other than being in the country illegally, that are being looked for are people who have already gone to before an immigration judge and they've been deemed, yeah, nope, sorry, you're not here legally. You got to go. If you enter a country illegally, you got to believe that eventually you're going to be asked to leave. That's not an unrealistic expectation. So, yeah, so then there's that. And, once again, as a result of a lot of this, you've got all of these protests taking place. And USA Today actually put together a map, which will help you to see where all of these, they're calling them, let's see, hold on, let me pull it up here. Excuse me. This is the map over at the USA Today. They're calling it map shows where anti-ICE Trump protests have occurred in the U.S. I call them pro-criminal illegal alien riots. That's what I call them. And I just wanted to share this with you real quick because I wanted you to see there's some things that are going to be happening right now this weekend. There's going to be the No Kings protests, which are taking place where they're trying to counter Trump's birthday and the military parade that's going to be taking place in Washington, D.C. But I wanted you to see this map real quick, and I wanted to share a few things with you. So you see here all the places where the protests are taking place or have taken place. And I wanted to show you the list of cities. Let's see here. Detroit, Michigan, Fairbanks, Arkansas, Phoenix, Arizona, San Francisco, Sacramento, Oakland, Oxnard, city after city, Palm Springs, San Jose, Denver, Aurora, Colorado, Washington, Hartford, Tampa. Every single one of these are major cities. Portland, Baltimore, Boston, New Orleans, Louisville, Milwaukee, Seattle, Burlington, Chester. In every single one of these cities is a liberal city. Even if it's in a red state, it is a very liberal city where these protests are taking place. Now, in some cases, or in many of the cases, it's because the city or the state are sanctuary cities. And there are, in fact, actions that are taking place that are being done by ICE. Why are actions being done by ICE in these cities? It's being done because these cities are engaging in illegal activity. They are actually they're refusing to work with local law with ICE. Local law enforcement has been ordered to not work with ICE, so they've had to go into the community to get the criminals. And I'm going to keep saying this. They're going after the criminal illegal aliens. Now, if you happen to be here illegally, you might get scooped up. They're not there. They'll take you. They will definitely take you, but they're not looking for you per se. You're not number one on their list. But that's where these things are taking place. It's all liberal left-wing cities. And which is interesting because they're burning down their own places, their own neighborhoods. That's what really gets me is they are torching, burning down, they are attacking the law enforcement that is there to protect them. Which once again is very, very interesting. And it's not winning them any favors. People aren't liking them anymore. Because one of the things that's been interesting about this is that the poll numbers have actually shifted across the board. Yeah, poll numbers across the board have demonstrated that that the voting public in general is not supportive of them on this. I think it's something like 59% of voters in general support what the president is doing when it comes to deporting criminal illegal aliens. It's above 59%. I don't know what the number is, but it's above 59%. Only about 36%, 36 to 39% are against it. But what's even funnier is even amongst illegal immigrants, people who are in the country, not illegal, legal immigrants, people who have come to this country legally, gone through the legal process, people who they say, well, we should believe in immigration. Well, we do believe in immigration. We believe in legal immigration. But even among these folks, Democrats have lost, they've lost perspective. And even those folks are now shifting and supporting the Republican / Donald Trump position on immigration, according to CNN.
So we are standing by to see what a new day brings in Los Angeles, with the city bracing for a fifth straight day, potentially, of protests to be breaking out in downtown Los Angeles against the administration's ramped up ICE raids we've seen playing out. Also, we've seen similar protests breaking out in cities across the country over the administration's immigration crackdown. So where is the country's voters on this issue? CNN's Harry Anton took a look at the numbers around, interestingly enough, how immigrant voters feel about immigration and the immigration crackdown. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's just sort of start off on the fact that immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were, in fact, immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
So that's on that issue. How about how they feel about, kind of traditionally, historically, about Donald Trump?
Yeah, so, you see this shift and you go, what is going on underneath the hood? Well, take a look, Donald Trump. You remember when he first ran back in 2016, immigrant voters were one of his weakest spots. But look at this, Trump's vote share in presidential elections among, again, immigrant citizens, those who are registered to vote. Look at this. In 2016, he got 36% of the vote. You go to 2020, 39% of the vote. Look at this. In 2024, all the way up to 47% of the vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely losing that vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely winning that vote. Again, there is no block of voters that shifted more to the right from 2020 to 2024 than immigrant voters, and Donald Trump, at least in some surveys, actually won that vote. On average, it's about equal. So there may be all this stuff, right, about undocumented immigrants and Trump being harsh on them, but immigrant voters themselves have increasingly liked Donald Trump and have increasingly moved to the right on immigration into the Republican camp.
Well, then on that, what you're getting...
See, that's... Once again, that's CNN that is reporting this. They have no reason to promote the Republican Party. They're just being truthful, and she once again sharing the data where people are at. And what that's telling you is this. It's telling you that the narrative that the media is trying to share with you, the narrative that Democrats are trying to share with you, is just not being believed. People aren't believing what it is that they have to say. They've lost all credibility amongst those who are not part of the 35% of progressive left-wing, either they're stupid or they're intentionally, they've chosen to be indoctrinated folks. That's where the data is. That's where most people are. Republicans do not control the mainstream media. They do not control the legacy media. Right? They just don't. Now all of the information that they're getting comes from the left. And yet people are looking at it and they don't believe the left anymore. They don't believe the media anymore. And that's because they're seeing the consequences. You've got people right now in a lot of these blue cities who are like, look, you're talking about cutting the budget for this and cutting the budget for that, cutting budget for programs that they believe in their eyes are near and dear to their hearts and that they need. Those programs are being cut while at the same time, more and more and more and more money and resources are being put towards those who come into the country illegally. And they're like, wait a minute, what about us? And that's why they're losing the support. People who went through the process legally, I mean, they spent the time, energy, and effort and the money to come here. My wife did it. My wife's family did it. And the last thing that they want to see is the government, their tax dollars being used to not just allow people to circumvent the process and cut the line, but to encourage them to do so. That's what you've got going on right now. That's what you've got. Democrats in California, in Illinois, Democrats across the country are supporting the idea that not only should we allow them to come in, but we should encourage them to come in, and we should allow them to commit crimes against the people here. We should allow them to commit rape and murder and robbery and DUI and all of these things because they're immigrants. And if it hurts the American people, then so be it. The American people, you're just going to have to suck it up. That's their attitude. That is what they believe. I'm sorry. Look, if you're a Democrat and you disagree with that, look, the proof is in the pudding. I'm talking your own politicians' words. If you don't like what they're saying, if you don't like what they're doing, then it's up to you to replace them. Because I didn't vote for them. Not saying, just saying. All right, changing the subject just slightly. Israelis committing genocide at 40,000 feet. No, this is not an anti-Israel or anti-Jewish post or comment. It's actually part of a satire that was put together by the folks over at the Washington Free Beacon, and it was so good I had to share it. So that's going to be what we're talking about right here. It says here, genocide at 40,000 feet. Israel tortures autistic child with sandwiches and flight on gas-guzzling jet. Devout climate activist survives excoriating ordeal involving single-use plastics and non-declining seat. This is how the mainstream media would report the removal or the sending home or the deportation of Greta Thunberg from her attempt to enter Israel. It says here, the Jewish state of Israel has committed yet another genocide war crime against humanity by sadistically torturing an autistic 22-year-old child aboard an El Al deportation flight on Tuesday. Greta Thunberg, the Swedish climate activist, was kidnapped earlier this week after her Gaza-bound resistance yacht was intercepted by Zionist occupational forces. The torture began almost immediately. Thunberg, who suffers from severe mental anguish on account of being passionate about climate change, was ruthlessly taunted by her militant captors. They offered her water in a plastic bottle, a major contributor to ocean pollution and fossil fuel consumption, as well as a shockingly mediocre sandwich that also was wrapped in earth-killing plastic. Academic experts have described this as a form of psychological torture akin to mock execution that is arguably more traumatic than waterboarding due to the existential nature of climate change, of the climate change threat. Hold on, wait, about a little bit more. Oh, you got to love this. There she is with her little sandwich and the plastic kills thing. The torture resumed Tuesday morning after Thunberg allegedly signed a deportation order and was forced aboard a gas-guzzling jumbo jet. Aviation is a significant contributor to global CO2 emissions, and it is unclear if Thunberg was given the opportunity to purchase carbon credits to offset the environmental harm caused by her trip. Once aboard, the adult Swedish child was forced to endure physical torture for the duration of the 5-hour flight. She was placed in an aisle seat, unable to see out the window without straining her neck. Thunberg's discomfort was compounded by the fact that her seat was in the last row before the lavatory, which prevented her from reclining her seat while being forced to imbibe the smells and sounds of her fellow passengers peeing and pooping mere inches away. There she is right there on the flight. Okay, all right. I think that's enough. Yeah, I think you guys get it. Anyway, needless to say, yeah, old girl's got issues. No, she was not tortured, but yeah, she might need to work something out. She got it. Old girl got issues. Let's just put it that way. She got issues. Anyway, folks, that is now going to bring us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces. Get your Hog Holster today. As you know, Gavin Newsom, well, let's just say Gavin Newsom, who wants to be the next president of the United States, he's ramping up his campaign. And as you saw from his big speech, he's doing everything possible to blame Donald Trump for exactly where the world, where California is and all the things that have gone wrong. And so that's why we're going to use the Babylon Bees list, because we know how you guys love lists. 10 things Gavin Newsom blames on President Trump. Let's see here. Number 1, weird smell in San Francisco. He can't prove it, but he's certain Trump's to blame. All the injuries suffered by Angels center fielder Mike Trout. Yeah, okay, I get that one. Facts that Chipotle is so stingy with their meat. Well, there you go. Welcome to Trump's America. The one wobbly wheel on every grocery cart. That is clearly a Trump thing. Things falling between the car seat and the center console. Yeah, that's horrible right there. That is definitely a horrible one. The time he fell off his bike and skinned his knee as a child. Hostess cupcakes being noticeably smaller than they used to be. Yeah, that's called shrinkflation. No, wait, I'm sorry. That's a Biden thing, but he's going to blame Trump for it. The Star Wars sequel trilogy definitely wasn't that good. Don't know what Trump had to do with it, but why not blame him? The creation of fire and California's decline over the course of 35 years. Yeah, no, I would say that would be pretty much when the Democrats kind of took over the whole kit and caboodle. That would be a bigger sign of what happened. All right, anyway, that leads us now to the end of our program, and you might actually want to see me on that one. Here we go. Bam, there we go. That brings us to the end of the program, but before we go, we have one last shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. You can find them at cragop.org. And then you've got the finest in concealed carry tactical holsters at hogholsters.com. That's helpingamericans.wear-guns.com. And then finally, you can find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. All right, folks, that's it for today's program. We will be back tomorrow on Free for All Friday. Hope you guys tune in. Hope you comment. Hope you encourage your friends to tune in and comment. And I don't know. Ain't got nothing else to say except we will see you then. Peace.